If you're trying to build an ecom business, you could be about to waste years of your life building a business that is destined to fail. Not because you're lazy or you haven't got what it takes, but because you're making decisions based on untested assumptions. But don't worry, this video will give you the surprisingly simple tool that I and hundreds of other successful ecom owners use to spot risks early and spin them to our advantage. It's called the Risky Assumptions Framework. And once you complete these 3 easy steps, every single part of your business becomes stronger. Most new founders follow this process. They find a product they like, they start a Shopify store, they launch some ads, and then they sit and they wait for customers. And when profitability doesn't come, they start to tweak the landing page or start to blame the ad platform. But in reality, the problem was never the store or the ads. The problem is that they skipped one of the most important steps, which is checking if the core assumptions they had about their own business were actually true. Things like, do people actually want this? Will people pay this amount for it? Will they switch to a brand with 0 reputation? Essentially, they are building their business on quicksand, and when it all sinks to the ground, they're left confused. Well, the Risky Assumptions Framework is brutally simple. It's the tool you use to write down everything that has to be true for your idea to work. And then we test those things fast and cheap. By the way, the link for you to make your own copy of the Risky Assumptions Framework is below, and feel free to work along. So it's not just that we're writing down every potential risk to your business, it's that we are framing them as assumptions. The reason we do this is that if we just write down all the risks, we'll likely miss out a bunch of assumptions that we have made along the way that we don't even see as risky. And these are the silent company killers. So let's quickly look at some examples of assumptions that I see e-commerce founders making all the time. People will leave their current brand to try something new. My target customer is willing to pay X amount to get 24-hour delivery. I can source and ship our product at a 60% margin when sold at X price. These are your assumptions, and just one wrong answer can sink your business. So instead of trying to avoid the risk, which you never really can in early stage business, the goal is to spot them early, be aware of them, and work on them. So in the next 3 simple steps, I will walk you through how to identify those assumptions and test them. So step 1, start by thinking through your business idea. I want you to write out every single assumption that has to be true for your business to work. You want to cover things like customer behavior, demand, pricing, delivery, everything. Even if you're completely certain that it's not a risk, I still want you to write it down. Here's a couple categories to think through to get your juices flowing. What a horrible phrase. Desirability. Do people actually want this? Feasibility. Can I actually supply this? And commercial viability. So will this actually make money? I want you to write down 10 assumptions minimum. If you find yourself saying something like, I reckon this will work because of XYZ, then you are literally making an assumption. So please write it down. On to step 2, which is to score them. Now I want you to go through your list one by one and score each of your assumptions on 2 things. Number 1, impact. What is the impact on your business if this assumption turns out to be false? How bad is it on a scale of 1 to 10? And the second thing I want you to score it on is the level of uncertainty. So how certain are you that this assumption is true? Both with the higher number being the worst outcome. Once we've been through each of them, you can times the 2 scores for each assumption together to get your risk score out of 100. So using an earlier example that I made, I can source and ship this product at a 60% margin when sold at X price. If the impact score of your assumption being incorrect is 6 out of 10, meaning it's very bad news to the future of your business if this isn't correct, and your level of uncertainty is 8 out of 10, then you times those 2 numbers together and your risk score Then you times those 2 numbers together and you have a risk score of 56 out of 100. The larger the score, the riskier the assumption, and that's what we'll be focusing on in step 3. But before that, we want to arrange all of your risks in order of importance. So start with the highest risk score at the top and work our way down. We will, of course, be tackling the risky assumptions head on first, and we will work our way down the list. So on to step 3, which is designing MVP style experiments. Now, you've likely heard of MVPs by now, minimum viable products. But I want to encourage you to take this thought process a step further. We want to find out if your assumptions are right or wrong in the cheapest, quickest, easiest way we can. And speed is always the answer in early stage business. So we want to think of an MVP more like a minimum viable process, meaning what's the easiest task that you can do to prove or disprove that assumption. And that would be your MVP style experiment. So continuing on with the earlier example, I can source and ship my product at a 60% margin when sold at X price. In this exact example, it's really simple. Your test would just be to call some suppliers of that exact product, get a bunch of quotes of that product landed in your hands, then you just do the maths and you have your answer. That's a little too easy though. Let's find a difficult assumption that takes a bit more of an involved test. An assumption that I hear a lot is customers will choose my brand over the current well-known competitor, insert whatever name you want here. So there's a few options for MVP style tests on this one. I would run a low budget keyword targeting campaign on Google Ads, essentially using your customer's name as the keyword phrase. Just like I'm sure you've seen when you've gone to Google, competitors come up before the thing you've actually typed. If people click your name and then actually stay on your website, as in they don't realize they've clicked the wrong link and then disappear within 3 seconds, then this suggests that people aren't completely attached to your competitor's brand and they are at least open to finding a better option. Now, I can hear you saying, I don't want to spend money to find this answer, which slightly suggests I haven't done my job in convincing you how important this is, but here's a free one anyway. Let's go to Google Trends, which is a free Google tool that shows you the search quantities for specific terms and keywords. Let's do a little bit of research into how many people search alternative to competitor's name. If there's a lot of people searching for that, then there's clearly a batch of customers who aren't getting exactly what they need from the competitor. And again, this proves your assumption to be correct and the uncertainty score can drop. You may find that a lot of these MVP style tests are as simple as speak to more customers and find out. So hopefully by now you've got some sort of customer discovery process ongoing. And if not, you can check out this video here where I walk you through how to do customer discovery. Just remember that finding the right MVP style test is about one that you can do easily. If you're a pro web designer, then feel free to go ahead, make a fake landing page, see how many click through. But if you're a sociable extrovert, then feel free to go out to where your customers spend their time and start asking questions. Not that web designers can't be extroverts, but I don't actually think I've met someone who's both. Sorry, web designers. Essentially, there's no point in learning a million new skills when you already have a skill that can give you your answer. And if you're struggling to come up with some MVP style test ideas, feel free to reach out, drop your risky assumption, and we will give you a list of ideas that you can test. Now, let's talk about what happens when your risky assumptions don't just stay risky, they actually get worse the more you dig. Maybe you've run a test, you've spoken to some potential customers, you've set up that landing page. And the result? Your idea is looking more fragile than you first thought. The uncertainty score is rising each time you check back on the results. Okay, firstly, calm down. This is actually fantastic news. Just look at it like this. You were going to build this business and you were possibly going to waste years of your life and tens of thousands of pounds on this idea. We need to be really thankful here because this risky assumption would have ruined you. Now let's recompose. Let's take some action on this. It's time to pivot. Your job now is to zoom out and ask, what's the core need here? Or how else can I solve this or get around the problem? To really simplify, here's 3 ways to pivot effectively. Nice and simple, let's start by trying to just reframe the offer. So instead of trying to force your original vision, ask yourself, can I just adjust the product? Can I adjust the packaging? Can I adjust the messaging? And can I still meet the original need in a new, fresh way? Or maybe we could try changing the audience rather than the product. So maybe this product works, but maybe just not the original people that you had in mind. Could you maybe test by shifting towards a customer segment that have similar pain points but maybe stronger purchase intent? Or number 3, narrow the audience and go deeper. So if you can't serve the whole section of the market well, focus on a really small, unserved slice of it. Niche down to stand out. So to really hammer this point home, the best e-commerce businesses didn't start with a perfect idea. They started with their best guess, then they tested it, then they hit a wall, and then they adapted. In fact, 75% of successful businesses have pivoted at least once. Pivoting means you're listening to reality and you're not clinging on to ego. You're not trying to be right all the time, you are trying to get it right. And that's essentially what separates people who build successful brands and people who get stuck in the messy early stages for years on end. Once you think you've solved the original issue by pivoting effectively, make sure you retest that initial failed assumption and move to the next on the list. So on to the actual payoff of this exercise. As you work your way down the risky assumptions list, you will be unshackling parts of your business and you will be heading towards some serious results. You don't need to build the perfect business to be successful. But the first step is identifying what has to be true in order for your business to succeed. And obviously testing it before you bet your entire life savings on a risky assumption. And if you're wondering how to actually find that first batch of customers to test with, I'll walk you through it in this video here. It's all about defining the perfect customer and finding them. See you soon, crew.